All right, welcome back to the channel. So, I told you so. Gary Russell Jr. is without a doubt proven to be the #1 featherweight in the world after Josh Warrington gets exposed by a guy that fought out of Mexico for the first time in his career. Can we now agree that Gary Russell Jr. is the best fighter under 130 pounds in the world? Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back. I gotta tell you, I'm very, very, very happy to make this video because I knew in not too short amount of time that I was gonna be able to make this. Josh Warrington got mopped up by a guy whose name I don't think I'm even gonna say in this video because that makes it all so much more clear. His name was Lara, and we ain't talking about Arislandi. He fought who Ring Magazine said was the #1 featherweight in the world, Josh Warrington. That's what they said. Now, I, on the other hand, was on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, being very, very clear that there ain't no way in the world that Josh Warrington would be able to beat Gary Russell Jr. in a fight because they are completely different levels of fighters. What was said about me because of this? Because of what I said. Oh, yeah, sure. If you use the eye test, do you mean the eye test as in look with your eyes or what I believe? Because I don't understand. I thought we were supposed to use the eye test when you're looking at sports. You're supposed to look, see what people do in the ring or on the basketball court, and then guess and say, oh, I think he's a good player. Like, for example, if Steph Curry was to sit outside a three-point line and shoot 600 threes and not miss any of them, your eyes would tell you that he knows how to shoot because you keep seeing the ball go in the hoop. But certain types of people that are, not that bright, say, well, we just don't know. We've got to see. Okay, great. We've seen Steph Curry do this over and over again for years and years and years now. Do you think he can shoot yet? Well, we don't know because, maybe he just doesn't have good enough of defender in front of him. No, he knows how to shoot. Same thing for Gary Russell Jr. The eye test works. You see that this man is difficult to hit. You see that this man stays in range, can counter you with multiple shots, is always in position to hit you, and nobody has come close to beating him except for Vasily Lomachenko, who's much bigger and a two-time Olympian and a future Hall of Famer. But for some reason, Gary Russell Jr. beating JoJo Diaz, who moved up in weight to win the IBF championship, and by the way, is now too big for 130 and is going to have to move to 135 pounds. You think that Gary Russell Jr. would get any credit for that? No. But now what do we have? The guy, Josh Warrington, who they said was the #1 person, right? Lost to Lara. And how did he lose to him? By knockout. Embarrassing knockout. One which the man could hit him with 4 and 5 shots in a row. How are you going to eat 5 and 6 shots in a row and still consider yourself the man? That's what happened to Josh Warrington. Right hook, left hook, uppercut, followed by another left hook, right hook, uppercut. He might have changed it every once in a while and went right hook, uppercut, left hook, but they were all power shots and he couldn't miss the man for anything. How is that a world-class fighter? Lara had never been out of the state and never been out of the country of Mexico before. Flew over to the UK in the middle of a pandemic and beat that man so bad it was a joke. But people would tell me that Josh Warrington was the number one 126 pounder because he beat who? Who did he beat? Carl Frampton? Somebody else that would get embarrassed in the ring by Gary Russell Jr. And we should all know it because of the eye test. Boxers, trainers, other sports people use their eyes, look at what's going on, and make logical decisions. But that's not what we get in boxing. What we get in boxing is blind, dumb loyalty to our own opinions. Blind, dumb loyalty to the opinions of promoters that are not there to make the best fights. They're there to make the most money for themselves. And that's what we saw with Josh Warrington. Now, if you say, well, maybe Gary Russell Jr. would have difficulties with Lara. We don't know. Maybe Lara, the new IBF, champion, was he stripped? No, he doesn't even get it because Josh Warrington, this superhero, refused to take a rematch with another pedestrian fighter named Kid Galahad. But don't let that get in the way of Ring Magazine celebrating. But let's also take a pause here for a second and recognize that the UK just lost another champion. I thought that they were taking over for American boxing. That's what I thought. I thought that the UK was so good and dominating that they were outdoing the United States. Charlie Edwards was a champion. Josh Warrington's a champion. Josh Taylor's a champion. Oops, 2 of them went away, didn't they? Real quick, how many world champions y'all got now? About 3? 2, 3 at the best? The takeover is over. The talent for boxing, by and large, lies in America. But because we're trying to be so international, we want to make the world look like it's not a lopsided talent gap between the United States and the UK. A lopsided talent gap between the United States and the Ukraine. Last time I checked, the Ukraine ain't got no champions. Last time I checked, they ain't got no champions. Lomachenko ain't a champion. Boychuk ain't no champion. Usyk ain't no champion. We're their champions. Completely gone. But they were dominating American boxing. While we had Deontay Wilder, who's still a champion in my eyes because of that cheating. Jamal Charlo, David Benavidez, Caleb Plant. Who else is out? Erislandy. Well, Erislandy Lara is Cuban, but he's in the Americas. You get the point. The entire welterweight division, except for another Cuban who's in the Americas, named Yordenis Ugas, who just got the WBA title. I hope we can now put to rest that either the UK fighter or the Eastern European fighter are taking over boxing. They're not. And it is time to start giving Gary Russell Jr. his flowers now while he's on the tail end of his career. Recognize this man in Ring Magazine as the number one featherweight in the world because that is what he is. By accomplishment and by skill. He is the longest reigning champion in all of boxing, and you will not give this man any credit. This man can't even get fights beyond the tough ones, like King Tug and JoJo Diaz, who will both beat Josh Warrington. Both beat the guy that knocked out Josh Warrington. But don't let that get in the way of, your fairy tales. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.